hope I learned something. I hope I learned something. I hope I learned something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. I hope we learned something. I hope we learned something. I hope we learned something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to the daily All Hat No Kettle News Rodeo. I'm your host, Hat. Good day. Folks, I'm hanging on by razor's edge. I'm not sleeping again. And it's going to be a short show. I know YouTube, I told you at the last minute yesterday that you're only going to get a half hour today. And for the rest of y'all on Trovo and D-Live, it may not even be a full hour. I just could not concentrate today, but I will do my utmost best. I always owe you guys everything 100%, and I'll do what I can. Just to let you know, it may be a little choppy today. But anyway, we've got, of course, many things to get to. I'll have an update on the Middle East, including what may be the greatest head fake from one army versus an opponent since World War II. And even then, I'm not sure if there was one in World War II that comes close. Except maybe for, oh yeah, actually there is. That was the fake Patton's First Army in Great Britain. That was the last best great head fake. But the IDF had a really good one their time last night, our time this morning. Also, got a lot of interesting border news, including some disturbing numbers regarding possible early retirements from Custom and Border Patrol agents and their feeling of being whipsawed by politics over the last few years, especially recently. There are our Secretary of DHS, Mayorkas, being a complete scumbag in front of Congress, as we have all come to expect. But I also have some good news, actually, in the Law and Order block. A very touching story. The Epoch Times has started a new column where they put together inspirational stories. And they have basically replaced one of their other politics sections with that. And I found a really beautiful one for today that I'm very much looking forward to sharing with you. But first, as always, to interrupt myself, we will end the day with my pick of this week's best freedom tunes. This one is all about woke language and gender, and how maybe it doesn't make a difference after all. But let's first get to our Babylon Bee bookend, the one that we use on Fridays. This is the one on the left. From their world section, Middle Easterners run for bomb shelters after learning U.S. suffering oil shortages. And here you can see a Middle Eastern man and his family booking down a small street headed for the bomb shelter with fear in their faces. Dateline Middle East. Innocent civilians around the Middle East scrambled for their bomb shelters after hearing news of a gasoline crisis in the United States. They're running out of gasoline? We're in danger! Run! Shouted one man in Syria as he grabbed his wife's hand and urged his kids to run into their bomb shelter. Built during the Obama administration, the shelter saved their lives more than a few times. Though it wasn't used as much during the Trump administration, the shelter has started to come in handy more now that Biden is in office. And they couldn't have been more thankful to have the underground shelter now that the U.S. is having gasoline distribution problems. Said another man in Iran, every time we catch a whiff of any kind of oil, gasoline, or other fuel problems in the U.S., we sound the alarm in our little village. It's the smartest thing to do. You can't be too careful. Yes, we're glad that a woman of color is finally in the White House, and we're really proud of that kind of progress, but a bomb is a bomb, and we can't take our chances. Close quote. Babylon Bee, everyone. Rounding out an excellent week of their coverage as always. Next up, of course, my personal conceit, the market. A very strong day of recovery across the board. All the major indices were up over 1%. The NASDAQ was the big leader today, up over 2.2%, closing well above the 13,000 mark at 13,415 and change. But if you look at the 1 month spreadsheet here, you can see that they have fallen mightily since their peak back on May 10th. There has been a huge drop-off, and we're only now starting to see some recovery, but there's a long way to go back to where it was before. And with the inflation numbers and the consumer confidence numbers that just came out today, it'll be interesting to see how much further ahead the market can go. Gold actually saw a bit of a resurgence. It closed up over $1,840 an ounce for the first time in months. Crude oil had a strong comeback, closing at $65.32 per barrel of West Texas Intermediate Sweet crude. And Bitcoin is coming back slowly but surely. It's currently holding steady right around the 50,700 mark, slightly below that at present. Interesting story, though, speaking of cryptocurrency, and that is the hackers' dark side. You'll remember that name quite well. Dark side are the hackers who announced they were the ones who shut down the Colonial Pipeline system by infecting their entire database with a crypto system, thereby locking them out of their data and their ability to control the pipeline. They were paid some $5 million in cryptocurrency at the time, although interestingly enough, perhaps ironically enough, a few days after that payment was made, that crypto was worth a little less than $5 million because the bottom had fallen out of the market. Be that as it may, they did walk away with a boatload of money, and they were all over the news. Interesting, since then, though, this article from Seeking Alpha from this morning, DarkSide says it's closing up shop after its servers were seized by an unspecified country and a cryptocurrency account used to pay affiliates was drained by an outside party. So, folks, basically, DarkSide is broke when it comes to funding its outsourcing. It's broke. Not to say it doesn't have any money, but it basically has no outside sources to continue hacking. And as we all know, hacker networks are incredibly widely distributed. You don't just have one room of people banging away. You have scores of people, if not hundreds, all across the globe working their own sections of the network, trying to solve little pieces of the puzzle here and there, and then put it all together into one big mosaic. Continuing with the article, DarkSide said it would release decryptors to all of its current targets who have not yet paid, and the group will meet all of its outstanding financial obligations by May 27th. Hey, Steely Dan and Twin Crier, nice to see you both, and good afternoon, Scully, as always. Howdy, howdy to you. Now, there is a bit of a dark cloud to the silver lining. I'm quoting Brian Krebs, who is saying that this could be just a likely retreat from the spotlight, more than DarkSide and other groups discovering the error of their ways. And that makes perfect sense. There is money to be made in black hat activities. So it would be more than likely that DarkSide and people like it will soon be popping up again. But perhaps now that they have made such a large show of themselves, their ability to get into networks may not be as easy as it has been up to now. Real quickly, though, by the way, it turns out that Toshiba's French subsidiary said it was breached by DarkSide. They mentioned that earlier today. But if DarkSide is going to start releasing decryptors, then hopefully Toshiba Tech, which is the French subsidiary of Toshiba, will be able to get out from underneath it. Okay, so as I teased, there was a very, very, very bad set of numbers released today regarding consumer sentiment, also known as the Consumer Confidence Index. This is an article from Breitbart by John Carney. And the University of Michigan survey of consumer sentiment dropped 6.2% from the final April read to a score of 82.8%. Economists had forecast a gain to 90.3 from the previous 88.3. And to quote Richard Curtin, the survey's chief economist, consumer confidence in early May tumbled due to higher inflation, the highest expected year-ahead inflation rate, as well as the highest long-term inflation rate in the past decade. The current conditions component of the index also tumbled over 6%, 6.6% to be exact, down to 90.8%. Pardon me, that's not a percent, that is a number. I'm misreading that. It dropped 6.6% to 90.8. The expectations component fell 6.2% to 77.6%. So this is all very, very, very bad news. Quoting the article further, inflation expectations for many items are at the worst level since the early Volcker era, Paul Volcker, the head of the Fed under Reagan, when the Fed pushed interest rates sky high to contain inflation, triggering a recession that outraged the public and put the central bank at odds with the Reagan administration, which was trying to spur faster growth after the malaise of the Carter administration. Curtin also said the average of net price mentions for buying conditions for homes, vehicles, and household durables were more negative than any time since the end of the last inflationary era in 1980. Now, again, the Fed says this inflation is going to be transitory. Once people start getting back to work, once the economy chain starts being rebuilt, supply lines, things like that, we're supposed to see these inflation worries ease and if not erase. In the meantime, we're not supposed to panic because the Fed will keep doing what they call quantitative easing to lower prices, price demands, I should say, which of course means they're just printing money, which means more inflation just later on. It's an insane policy. Whoever came up with quantitative easing needs to be put into the stocks and have rotten fruit thrown at them from very close distances. Quoting Curtin one more time, this combination of persistent demand in the face of rising prices creates the potential for an inflationary psychology fostering buy-in advance rationales and cost of living increases in wages. The survey also shows that 2/3 of people expect a Fed rate hike in the year ahead, which they have promised they would not do. So that is a frown on Sleepy Joe that definitely deserves to be there. Steely Dan says the wagon's on fire and heading towards a cliff. Scully brings us back to the horrible 80s, reminding us of the 15% interest rates, and those were commercial rates for Scully. Yes, as I remember correctly, I believe inflation in my home county back in Illinois, which is south of Chicago, back in the early 80s, I believe inflation was around 21%. And unemployment was likely close to being that high, definitely in the high teens, which is why I had to move to Texas to get a job after I graduated from college, because there were 0 jobs in my area. I almost hooked up with the Red Cross in Chicago. I was very, very close to going in for an in-person interview for a position as their head AV guy, their in-house AV guy. But at the very last minute, they re-looked at my resume and realized I had just graduated from college, and they called me and said, "Don't bother coming in. You don't have any experience." And I tried to explain that I'd been doing AV since like 1970. This was 1982, 83, I should say. And they would have nothing to do with me, so I lost that job. But I moved to Texas, and it was gravy ever since. Never out of a job for more than a couple months after that, and all of those job gaps were of my choosing. I've never been fired from a job, not once, and I've had many, many jobs. I like to keep my life in variety. All right, continuing right along. The Arizona election audit. As I've said, I'm not hitting on this every day because there's all these back and forths. But I referenced this story yesterday, and now it's coming more and more into light, so I wanted to bring it up. This is an article from justthenews.com written by their great Daniel Payne, Payne, by the way. And it seems things are not going well between the auditors and Maricopa County. Maricopa County Elections Board has been fighting all efforts by the Arizona legislature to investigate the votes. And the common refrain is if there was nothing wrong, then there's nothing to hide. Just comply with lawful subpoenas that have been upheld by judges, let it happen, and then you can claim victory when it's all over, and it'll be proven that you have been telling the truth all along and that there was nothing nefarious that happened. That's what Maricopa County's been saying, and let's let that happen. Just let the audit happen, and you'll be proven right, and it'll all fall away. All the naysayers will shut up, and Arizona can hold its head high and say, we did a great job with the election. It's all anyone expects. Instead, we have things like this. Maricopa County Elections Board is refusing to allow the auditors access to the routers that were used in the election. They're saying, Maricopa County is saying that the routers were not used exclusively for the election. They're also used for law enforcement. And so the state Senate has come back and said, hey, just let us look at virtual images of the routers under the supervision of Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. So that way we won't have access to any secret or sensitive data that can be leaked out. That'll all be taken care of right there in real time. And Maricopa County's fighting that. Also, there is word also coming from the head of the Arizona State Senate, what Electric Dog teased out yesterday, and I mentioned during the show. They're saying that there may be a deletion of an entire database from a county election machine. Quoting the state Senate leader, Data from the machine suggests that the main database for all election-related data for the November 2020 general election has been removed. Also, there are apparent omissions, inconsistencies, and anomalies relating to Maricopa County's handling, organization, and storage of ballots. Again, that's quoting the head of the Arizona Senate. And this includes lack of chain of custody documentation, as well as, again quoting, a significant number of instances in which there is a disparity between the actual number of ballots contained in a batch and the total denoted on the pink report slip accompanying the batch. Now, according to the article, there will be a public hearing next week. And they are saying it will be publicly televised. Let me find in the article just to be sure. I believe it's supposed to be next Wednesday. And the Senate is going to be holding the hearing, and they want the Maricopa County elections people to show up and represent themselves because they're the ones being accused of all these things. So they should have the opportunity to address these concerns. I'm trying to find it. Please excuse me. I can't highlight more than one thing at a time in these articles. I've got to find a different way to do this. Let's see. Hearing on Tuesday, May 18th. There it is. Senate hearing on Tuesday, May 18th to resolve the issues. And the event, quoting, again, the head of the Senate, the event will be live streamed to the public. So I'm hoping to cover that live. Since it is Arizona time, that'll give me a few hours in the morning to get ready. If anyone, including Scully and Steely Dan and Ray, can help me get a link to that hearing as soon as possible, at least Tuesday morning, whenever you can, please do so. I'll be looking at the chat all day. If I'll be gaming in the morning, and the chat will be up, so I can't miss it. And I will be there as soon as I can. I will be there. So I will look out for your help on that, and let's see what we can find. It would be pretty nice if we can do that. It's been a long time since we've covered election stuff, and again, these are allegations, and the Senate is giving Maricopa County Elections Board the opportunity to address these in an open hearing and lay all of these concerns to rest. So let's see what happens. All right, moving right along. I think it's going to be in the Fox 10, says Scully. Fox 10. I'll write that down right now. Thank you. All right, let me do that. Give me a moment to write down my brain, folks, because I can't remember anything. Fox 10, Tuesday. Thanks, Scully. That's great. That's great. And again, if you find something between now and then that's definitive, let me know. All right, moving right along. Getting to Israel and the Gaza Strip. If you were in the chat yesterday afternoon after the show ended, you would have seen me post a very terse note that said the ground war in Gaza has begun. There was a tweet sent out by the IDF that said that troops, I'll quote it, IDF air and ground troops are currently attacking in the Gaza Strip. And that was 4:42 in the afternoon yesterday, and I believe that's Eastern time. And yes, because that was midnight Israeli time. I should say, let's just call it Israeli time for simplicity's sake. So that was tweeted out by the IDF, their official Twitter account. And media jumped on it, including Fox. And they said the ground war has begun. And so I just basically copy and pasted that right into the chat. And then you find out this morning that's not what happened. But that's what the IDF wanted Hamas to think happened. Getting to the end of the YouTube segment. So what happened was IDF said, we're attacking the Gaza Strip. So Hamas started moving all of its men and material into what is known in Israel as the Metro, which is a series of tunnels, dozens of kilometers in length all total, that crisscross through Gaza and come up in various spots along the border wall and checkpoints. And so Hamas was massing troops and equipment, including mortars and anti-tank crews, in these areas to respond to any IDF incursions and present a counterattack. But the IDF never crossed into Gaza. Instead, they used ground and air forces, including tanks, artillery, and 160 aircraft, to bomb the living S out of the Metro. And they just blew it up. Now, we don't have any current BDA at the moment, bomb damage assessments or firm numbers. The IDF is still looking into that. But it appears that they were able to get Hamas to mass in a group as opposed to hiding throughout the strip behind civilians. And they were able to attack a military target with all of the strength the IDF could muster. So we're still waiting to hear exactly how that worked out. But I have some video here sent out also on the IDF Twitter page of some of these attacks, just about 30 seconds of these attacks, and you'll see some really no cat, no, I'm doing the show. And you'll see some really interesting stuff here. Let me blow it up, and we'll get right to it. There's no audio, by the way. So there's tank fire, and you can see it hitting what looks to be fuel dumps, and those are bomb drops, very, very large bunker buster bombs, excuse me, absolutely ripping very deep, very large holes into the ground, diving into the Metro. And there are Israeli fighter bombers taking off to deliver ordnance. Again, 160 aircraft were involved. Here's some more footage showing very, very deep explosions. Those are bombs that go quite a far ways into the ground before they explode, and they do a great deal of damage to underground structures. That's why they're called bunker busters. And you can see the debris just absolutely filling the sky. So there's that. There's that. And again, we still don't know exactly how that's all turned out yet. It's probably going to be a couple days before we have any firm numbers, I'm guessing. But according to the IDF's description of this video, the target, the Hamas Metro tunnel system in Gaza, the operation, 160 aircraft, tanks, artillery, and infantry units along the border. We struck 150 targets and damaged many kilometers of the Hamas Metro network. So there's that. All right, I'm going to touch on this very briefly. Unfortunately, the gains that the IDF is making at the Strip are not translating into peace at home. There are still basically race riots happening in Israel in areas where there are Muslim, or I should say Arab populations. The city of Lod, as we've discussed previously, is 30% Arab, and it saw massive riots, people getting shot, including police officers and paramedics. A paramedic was lightly wounded last night by Arabs shooting at him. Another synagogue was burned to the ground last night. That's 5 in total now. A number of Israeli homes have been torched. There are other cities undergoing the same thing. But it's not just the Arabs now. There are some right-wing nationalist groups in Israel, and they have been forming up, and they have been creating their own little terror cells, roaming around looking for a fight. I'm not going to play the footage because I don't show riot porn, but I have here a tweet from Liel Kaiser, and there was a camera crew from an area called Khan, which I believe is an old Soviet republic. And they were just on the street, and a couple of Israeli thugs attacked them, smashed their camera against a wall, and then one of them started tussling big time with one of the people with the crew. And a pretty big fight broke out between the four of them. until some people calmed it down. But and also, according to the article here, and this is from the Times of Israel. This is not a far left outlet. It says far right activists were also organizing on social media to attack Arabs in Jerusalem. So this is all falling apart in Israel right now, thanks to Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, just absolutely drumming up vicious race riots. All right, last for YouTube, and we'll be gone for today. We will be back 4 o'clock Monday for the normal show. You'll get a full hour Monday. But remember, next Friday, a week from today, I'm having jaw surgery. My lower implants are being installed, and I'm having this tooth pulled. So there will be no show Friday. There should be gaming streams next weekend. There will certainly be streams tomorrow, starting at 9 a.m. Eastern. But there should be gaming streams next week, unless I'm in a lot of pain, and I'll have to cancel them. So just keep an eye in the morning and see if I pop up. If I'm in a lot of pain, I won't be able to cut a video letting you know that I'm not going to be going on. If I can talk, I'll be able to game. But real quickly, let's get into this, and then we'll go to the after show for Trovo and D-Live. Basically, France is fighting back big time against the introduction of woke language, specifically gender-neutral language. France is a Romance language like Spanish, and it uses gender in its nouns and pronouns. Just like that's the way that gender was always known, is that the personification of a word in a language, whether it would be a female root or a male root. That was what the word gender had always meant until that jerk, Money, from Johns Hopkins, completely turned the world on its ear and invented gender theory. It was a complete disaster, by the way. The 2 children he experimented on both killed themselves at a young age, within their, I think, mid-20s and late 20s. They both took their own lives, thanks to this guy's repeated abuse of them. But for some reason, he is hailed as a hero amongst the gender crowd. And he is, in fact, a quack and a pedophile. Far be it from me to judge. But by trying to introduce gender-neutral language into French, you are ruining the French language. And France, if nothing else, has a very, very strong national identity. That's one of the reasons they're having such problems with the mass of Muslim immigrants they've taken in, because most of these people do not want to become French. They want to live in enclaves and continue their own ways. And if you're not French, you're not a French citizen. In fact, you can't be a French citizen and be French if you're not from France. It doesn't work that way. It's not like America. France is very chauvinistic in a number of ways. France even has something called the Académie Française, which is basically a 400-year-old institution that guards the French language. That's its job, to keep the French language from being turned into something other than French. And it is fighting against this practice. It's calling it harmful to the practice and understanding of French. France is trying to kill this insertion of American gender theory into their language. But unfortunately, they're getting pushback from the French left teachers union, the leftist teachers union, the SUD Education Union. This is what they said in a statement. SUD Education demands from the minister that he stop trying to impose his backwardness on the educational community. SUD calls on staff to take no account of these instructions from another time and to exercise as they wish, depending on professional situations, the full use of their pedagogical freedom. So this is not good. This is not good. France is trying to stay French, and their education system is doing their best to ruin it. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. I remember commenting on this maybe a month and a half ago when this battle first broke out. Macron has come out and publicly stated that he doesn't want any woke theory being a part of France because it's English, it's American, and it will ruin France. And so the battle is ongoing. The battle is ongoing. All right, so YouTube, I'm sorry for the shorter show, but you will get the full boat next week, except for Friday, as I said. Thank you for coming, as always. Very nice to have you. And again, if you want to see the full show, it's on dlive.tv/AHNC_hat or trovo.live. Same, and they have apps for both your iPhone and or your Android, whichever you prefer. Very good apps, very robust, and they do not spam you. I've been on DLive for years. The only emails I ever get from them are related directly to running the channel, nothing else. And so I'm very good with them. And I think Trovo has some advantages too, but I'm partial to DLive. So until whenever, YouTube, thanks so much, and I'll catch you soon. Bye-bye.